Stanford University, California, near the end of the 1960s. In a plain room sit a small table and a small chair, and in the chair sits a child of 4 or 5. On the table, on a plate, one marshmallow. A psychologist named Walter Mischel has just made the child an offer, and it is a simple one. You can eat it whenever you like. But he's about to step out of the room, and if the marshmallow is still on the plate when he comes back, there will be a second one, and the child can eat both. 1 now or 2 later. The door closes. 15 minutes. Some children eat it before the door has finished closing. Some go the distance, and the ones who make it mostly do it by fighting themselves. Hands sat on, eyes covered, the chair turned around to face the wall. Mischel kept the names. Decades later, he tracked those children down as adults, and his follow-ups found that the ones who had waited had, on the whole, done better in school, scored higher on their college exams, carried less weight, and fallen into fewer addictions. Ammous teaches this experiment in every economics course he gives, calls it the most important lesson his field has to offer, and marvels that most economics departments never mention it at all. The 2 piles are back. What exists? Against what can be made? Except this time neither pile is gold. One pile is you, today. The other is you, in 10 years. And something in your pocket has been coaching you, your whole life, on which pile matters more. What that room measured has a name. Time preference, the rate at which you discount the future. In plain words, how much extra does later have to pay you before you'll turn down now? Mischel's children set their price at 1 marshmallow for 15 minutes. Every adult sets a price too, and nobody's price is 0, because the future is only a promise. You have to survive the present to collect it. The price varies enormously from person to person, and the book's claim is that this one number, more than talent or luck or charm, quietly runs a life. The evidence is scattered through any ordinary week. Take the overtime shift, or the night out. Take the job that pays now, or the training that pays in 5 years. Buy the reliable used car, or sign the loan on the gleaming one. Study every week of the semester, or cram the night before the final. Ammous's favorite version, the one he gives his own students. Nobody grades any of this from outside. The one who pays for now and the one who collects later are the same person. By the book's count, you trade with other people a few times a day, and with your own future self dozens of times. Morning to night for life. And nobody enforces these deals. No contract, no court, no witness. The person who pays for a broken promise to your future self is your future self, and he can't sue. Ammous argues that a lifetime of those inner trades ends up weighing more than most of what the world ever does to you. And his exhibits sit at both ends of the scale. Gifted athletes who earned fortunes and died broke, and ordinary people on ordinary wages who saved for 40 years and left their children a better start than they got. Ammous tells it as 2 fishermen on the same beach, starting with nothing but their hands. Harry fishes 8 hours a day, eats what he catches, and sleeps. Tomorrow will look exactly like today. Linda fishes 6 hours, eats a little less than she'd like, and spends the last 2 hours of daylight on an object nobody can eat, a fishing rod. For a week she is, by choice, the hungriest person on the beach. Those evenings pay her nothing, and the rod may never work at all. That risk is baked into every plan aimed at the future, and it's why waiting has to promise a reward before anyone sane will wait. The rod works. The next week, Linda pulls twice Harry's catch from the same water. She could cut back to 4 hours a day now, eat exactly like Harry, and rest. Instead, she fishes 4 and builds 4, and the building hours become a boat. A month in, she's out in deep water, hauling up fish Harry has never seen in his life. Feeding herself now costs her 1 hour a day. Everything after it flows into better rods. Then nets, then a bigger boat. Run the 2 families forward. If Harry's children fish the way Harry fished, they inherit his day. 8 hours, bare hands, dinner, sleep, for as many generations as the line lasts. Linda's children inherit a boat, a set of nets, and the habit that built them. And each generation's tools take longer to build than the last, and catch more than the last. The parable has a real-world ending. There is a ship working today called the Annelies Illinga, the largest fishing vessel on Earth, a floating steel factory that took decades to conceive, finance, and build before she was finished in the year 2000. No day's catch could ever have paid for her. She was built on money set aside by people who knew the payoff was decades away, and she'll spend decades more paying their patience back. She is Linda's choice, compounded across generations. And by Ammous's telling, so is everything else with walls, every workshop, power plant, laboratory, and hospital stands, because somebody, somewhere, caught dinner and didn't need all of it. The price you charge the future is not a fixed piece of your character. It moves with age, with circumstance, with what the world around you does to people who wait. Fear moves it first. Where war or crime can take everything overnight, only a fool plans for next year. The future gets cheap when it isn't safe. Insecure property pushes the same way, and so do heavy taxes, skimming the reward off waiting. Ammous adds one more pressure to the list, and it's the one you handle every day: the money itself. Nearly every deal with your future self is carried by money. Save, and you are handing today's work to a person years downstream, a stranger. In most ways, you will never meet him. He can't thank you, and all you really know about him is that he'll need what you send. The money is the courier. In episode 3, the courier was a kitchen tin of gold coins, and it delivered. A workman's wages crossed a whole generation and arrived whole. Waiting cost nothing, so ordinary people waited. The old courier's record is long. In the year 301, the Emperor Diocletian had maximum prices carved in stone across the Roman world. Run his numbers through gold into modern money by the book's arithmetic, and a pound of beef in the year 301 came to about $4.50, a pint of beer, about $2. Olive oil was the luxury, near 20 a pint. 17 centuries later, dinner priced in gold costs roughly what it cost then. The new money makes the opposite promise, in public. The banks that manage it state the goal outright. A little inflation, always. Money designed to shed a sliver of its value every year, on purpose. That redraws every trade with your future self. The courier now takes a cut, so waiting is charged for. Borrowing collects a subsidy, because the money you repay is worth less than the money you took. It's the same table and the same two piles, one now or two later, but somebody has adjusted the payout for waiting and adjusted it downward. Ammous argues the arithmetic is the small half of it, because the habit doesn't stay in the bank. A person whose money rewards waiting starts pointing everything at the future: the training, the marriage, the reputation, every deal that only pays off years from now. A person whose money punishes waiting learns the opposite lean, one shaved sliver at a time. Nobody sits you down and says any of this. Money that holds value teaches patience. Money that melts teaches you to spend. The half-century since the world went off gold reads like the results coming in. In 1970, the 7 biggest Western economies saved nearly 13 cents of every dollar they earned. By 2015, it was under 3.5, the book's own tally, a fall of almost 3/4 inside one working lifetime. Across the same stretch, the ordinary Western household went from owing almost nothing to owing more than a year's income. The borrowing changed character along the way. Lending, for most of history, meant building. Money advanced against a harvest, a ship, a workshop. Linda, borrowing to finish the boat. By the book's telling, the new era invented something else: the credit card and the consumer loan, borrowing for dinner itself, with no boat anywhere in the plan. Even the wealthy, Ammous notes, now borrow against their fortunes rather than spend within them. He files the era under a farmer's phrase, eating the seed crop, and grants that a society can eat it for years without noticing a missed meal. The taste shows up in ordinary plans. A century ago, a family expected to pay for a house, an education, or a wedding out of what it had put away. Today, the book notes, that sentence sounds like a fairy tale, and the normal way to buy a future is to borrow it. One country makes a tidy control group. Switzerland kept its franc tied to gold until 1934, and kept vaults of it behind the franc into the early 1990s. And the Swiss went on saving in double digits, while the rest of the West slid into single digits, and in some years below zero. None of this happened by accident, and none of it happened in secret. Money that melts was an idea before it was a policy, argued into place by men who believed the melt would save the world. Their case was serious. Money that sits still in tins does nobody any good, and a slow melt keeps it moving, keeps factories humming, keeps the breadline short. The most famous economist of the 20th century made that case, and made it brilliantly. Against him stood a school that swore the melt was the disease itself, dressed as the cure. Between them, they split the century, and one side won nearly every government on Earth. Next time, an earthquake flattens the world's biggest copper mines, and within minutes, on screens everywhere, one number moves, with nobody in charge of moving it. The century's great fight was over that number, whether anyone should be allowed to set the price of money.